My name is Doug Hollis. I'm a former juvenile life in the state of Pennsylvania. I served 42 years in various institutions throughout the state. My conversation today is dealing with solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is when an inmate is placed in an isolation cell separated from the general population. And oftentimes, solitary confinement is designed to humiliate the inmate. One of my biggest peeves with solitary confinement, as I always talked about, is the strip searching process, where every time you go anywhere outside of your cell, you're being strip searched, whether it's to the shower, to the yard, or anywhere else. You're constantly being strip searched. There's a constant cavity check, and I think that this is a humiliating process for anyone that has been in solitary confinement. It's also a process or a system in which you are mentally challenged. Because if you don't have a strong mental capacity, the solitude is deafening, the solitude is destructive. It is also a place where, while there is solitude, there's a great deal of unrest. Because many of the people who are in solitary confinement are disrespectful, insolent, and they talk all day, all night. Your light is on in the cell all night. You don't get an opportunity to sleep or rest properly when you're in solitary confinement. If they're having mainline or they're serving meals, you have to be at your door with your light on. If you're away from the door, they'll walk by and they won't feed you. If you call the guard and ask him for your tray, you'll get a whole bunch of additional verbiage that's unnecessary. So for me, solitary confinement is really about dehumanizing an individual. You're being treated as a subhuman when you're placed in solitary confinement. And no man deserves to be in that type of environment, nor a woman for that matter. I think that solitary confinement is, while it may have been well intended when it began, it's been found to be detrimental to the mental stability of those who are housed there. My thing is, no one should be housed in solitary confinement for any extended period of time, because that is a mind-wrecking environment, and I think that we deserve better. And irrespective of the crimes we may have committed, we deserve more than what they give us when we're in solitary. Thank you.
My name's Kevin. I'm here share my experience of solitary confinement. I was an inmate who spent 4 years in solitary confinement, locked down 23 and 1. I was also under the mental health, so I spent time in the mental health block. At the time when I first went upstate to my prison where I was incarcerated at Crescent, at that time, I was on the mental health block, and that was my first time upstate. And being on the mental health block, it was the way that the officer treated the mental health at that time. I didn't know anything about how the system worked. What happened is it triggered things from my childhood, like when I was being bullied and stuff like that. So when I seen what the officer was and how they were treating the other inmates on the mental health block, I was like kind of advocate for them, and I would stand up for them. But I didn't know at the time that no one didn't inform me that you put a grievance in. So I was just like kind of dealing with the situation, the way I kind of come up where I come up from. And I thought that like physically you know, that's how physically, that's how I will respond to the abuse that was being afflicted upon us in the mental health block. And what happened one day, an officer, his name was Green, I was in the day room, and they started oppressing me. And I couldn't understand why they was oppressing me. And one day, Officer Green wanted me to lock up, but it wasn't my time to lock up. So I said, I ain't got to lock up. I'm going to finish watching TV. And what happened is he started choking me. And I mean, like, he was choking me to the point where, like, I couldn't breathe. So when he let me go, I just blanked out and I put my hands on him and kind of broke his jaw and stuff like that. And this is how I ended up in the hole. They wound up shipping me to Frackville. I did 2 years in the hole in Crescent after that, and then they shipped us to a county jail called Edinburgh. And you know, through that process, the abuse just continued for me, based under that I was under mental health. I was I was I was beat down, pepper spray over there in that hole in that county. I was left in cell buck naked for 3 days. They cut the heat off, put the air conditioner on, cut the water off, and left me like that for 3 days. And being though they wouldn't feed me enough like that, and them shutting the water off, the only water I had to drink was the water out the toilet. And that's how I survived, drinking the water out the toilet. And they took the cots and all that, so I was sleeping on this metal thing. And I also suffered a lot when they shipped me to Crescent also. You know, it seemed like it just continued to get worse for me based under me being under mental health. But at the time, the mental state that I was in, and I didn't know nothing about, like, the thing that would trigger me was based on, like, a lot of stuff from my childhood issues, or why I kept acting out. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's a lot of things that I kept acting out on based on the trauma and stuff that I have experienced. I struggle with going in and out when you had to go in and out the cell. So it took me a long time to come out to go to the yard to the bathroom, because every time you come out, it was a ritual that you had to get naked, you had to tuck your ear, pour your tongue out, spread your butt and all that. And I just rebelled against that, you know, because I just thought it was too much humane. It wasn't humane. So so what they would do is they begin to like physically force themselves to make me do things. You know, so I've been pepper sprayed. They had thrown gas in my cell and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I remember going on a food strike, a hunger strike, and they physically used physical force to force me to eat and stuff like that. You know, these are all the cruel things that I have experienced. But everything I truly believe for me was based on my mental illness.
Hi, my name is Edith Cook. I'm from Harrisburg. I currently work for Sounds Community Solutions. I served 2.5 to 6 year sentence, which of that sentence I did about 9 to 12 months in solitary confinement. During my time served in solitary confinement, I thought, because I was a prisoner and I had committed a charge or committed an offense, I deserved to be treated the way I was being treated. I didn't realize there was something wrong with the treatment because I had never been incarcerated before. Being in solitary confinement was a punishment that they passed down on me because I wouldn't conform or comply, I believe, to rules and things they had set for us to do in the prison. However, if you've never been incarcerated, you really don't know what the expectation is. So there was some resistance because I was angry, I was hurt, I was bitter about being separated from my family and my children. Because I came in on drugs and I slept for 3 days, that's where they put me in the beginning. Once I woke up and realized I was in solitary confinement, I believe I act maybe enraged like an animal or was fussing to get out. And they said I needed to stay in there. So they kept coming up with behavioral reasons for me to be in there. And while I was in there, I thought it was inhumane for me being a woman to take a bath once a week. Not being able to go out to yard with any sunlight the whole time there. Like I was like a beige color because of no sunlight. And some of the men that spoke before me, I never really moved around because of the strip search. I thought it was total violation to sit and squat before women and spread your cheeks and all that stuff. So I really didn't do a lot of movement unless it was going to court or something like that. Visits didn't happen with my family. They made visits like 5 in the morning, so my children couldn't come in to visit. So a lot of those things I was angry about, didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So the only way I could demonstrate it or get it out was to bang on the walls, holler, scream. Wasn't anyone to talk to. Sometimes you could talk to other people that was in solitary confinement alongside of you, but it rotated and they shifted so often. They knew who the regulars was, and I appeared at that time to be a regular for solitary confinement. Um, one of the benefits I found out, like, because in there felt like I started to lose my mind. I started to like hear voices and I believe I started talking back and responding, like to kind of keep some saneness going along. But I remember requesting for them to give me reading materials because it was nothing. And I couldn't believe they actually did it. And I think they only did it because there was a lady named Mother Wright who came into prison and checked on inmates. And I had been in solitary confinement so long, and she just kept checking on me. And they kept telling her she's still there. And she ordered them to send me some books. And that's how I got the books. And the books came in and I began to read them. So one of the benefits for me was I found God in solitary confinement. And the conversations I believe that I started to have was instructions on how to get out. And I don't believe I could have done that on my own accord. Other than those places when you don't have anyone to counsel you, you don't have anyone, so you don't have anyone to conversate with or anyone socially to interact with. It creates like a drowning, so to speak, for me, like on my soul. It was like a heaviness on me. And the heaviness over me, like, put me in places where, like, suicidal thoughts came. Like, why don't you just wrap the sheet up and just put it around your neck and just, do some of that. Then they came and they took all that stuff away when you just slept on just a mattress, But eventually, they finally had some type of court line, and I agreed to conform because every time they had it, and they said I was guilty of something, I refused to admit I was guilty of something that I didn't do. And so they just kept saying, okay, well, until you conform or comply, we're going to just keep you there. And that's what they decided to do. So at this one point, I just came and said, yes, I was guilty of this. They said time served. And I went out into population. Out in population, I almost wished I was back at sometimes. but I needed to learn how to have social interaction with people. So solitary confinement strips you of that ability. You lose sight of things, and you like the noises. Even when you're in mainstream or in population, those noises still play and ring in your head. So that's my experience with it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Washington, and I presently work at Sound Community Solutions as the Senior Coordinator for the Mentoring Initiative. I was incarcerated in a lot of different jails, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. The uniqueness of my incarceration was not only was I incarcerated, but I also worked inside of an institution for 24 years. So I know both sides of it. But my experience, one of my experiences of being in solitary confinement, they gave me the gasoline treatment. And what that means is that they was kicking me out of institutions. And I would go from one institution to another institution, and they keep me in solitary confinement. I used to think I was a political prisoner because I was the guy that did all the writing. I used to file grievances against the institutions. Chester County kicked me out, sent me to Northampton County. Northampton County kicked me out, sent me back to Chester County. Chester County sent me out again to Delaware County, and I filed so many 1983 forms on the conditions at Delaware County that they shipped me to Holmesburg, and Holmesburg didn't keep me, they shot me up gratis for it. And what it did is it created more trauma in my life. Because then I thought nobody wanted me. You know, I was already dealing with rejection, dealing with abandonment, and now institutions don't even want me. So it created more issues for me rather than bringing resolve. It just created more issues. So when I did go home, I didn't last but 2 months. 2 months, and after 2.5 years, I was back in jail because the issues that I came in with never got addressed. What I found out as a professional working in the institution, if you do put somebody in the hole or in solitary confinement, then it needs to be coupled with counseling. It needs to be an end. You should have an end game. You know, what's the end game? But I know that prisons operate on care, custody, and control. That's the primary purpose of an institution is care, custody, and control. And the care is so you don't kill yourself. It's not to care about your humanity. It's so you don't kill yourself. I want to keep you alive. That's it. So you can serve your time. That's what institutions do. And I know that as a result of being a professional. And we believe that that is not working. Solitary confinement and the condition that it's in, it's not working, and it needs to be revisited, and they need to make changes. And they need to ask people who has that experience, what changes they need input from people like us to find out what kind of changes do you feel we need to make? Because we personally experienced it. We personally went through the traumatic experience. And the sad thing is, you come into institutions with trauma, and then it's compounded with solitary confinement, which gives you more trauma. So then you come out and they think that you should be rehabilitated or changed or a better person. I don't think so. You know, it has a lot of psychological, a lot of emotional, and for some people, spiritual bondage. I mean, it just gets worse. It don't get better. That was my experience. And I hope that this tape helps y'all. Thank you.